Welcome to Beyond Revenue, Narratives of Revenue Leaders. I'm very happy to have you today in the show, Guy. You started your career actually in business development. I more or less worked always in sales, business development, and entrepreneurship. I think now since, if I'm not mistaken, almost 13 years or almost 12 years in revenue operations or as developing a tool which helps for revenue operations professionals to operate better. But handing over to you, welcome to Beyond Revenue. Who are you and what are you doing?
Well, thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here, a long-time follower of the podcast. So my name is Guy Rubin. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Ebsta. We present Ebsta as a revenue intelligence platform. So we try and help businesses understand all the signals around an organization that influence revenue so that they can build scalable revenue engines and help them grow faster, I suppose.
So as you're the CEO, what kind of responsibilities do you have in terms of leading your company, and how does your management team look like towards the revenue functions?
No, really good question. So obviously when you start a business as a CEO, you end up doing all the roles around the business. So as a founder and CEO, I started my life responsible for all sorts of things around the business, and very much the first deals that we ever did were all kind of founder led. So inevitably you get involved in every deal and every stage of every deal when you start up. We now consider ourselves moving from a startup to a scale up. So my role has moved on, and I probably spend most of my time with C-levels at prospects and customers, really doing some of the deep thinking with them about some of the challenges that they're facing around their revenue engine, and really trying to understand what they need next so that we can kind of align our product and our roadmap to the challenges that our customers and prospects are facing in the market.
Interesting. Right, we use the podcast here a little bit to talk about the role in general of a revenue leader, on the other side about modern revenue leadership. And I want to pick your experience here towards this. So my first question is, how do you see the role as a CRO in general, right, with your clients? And why do you think a company should have one leader or one person leading the entire revenue team?
No, I think it's a great question, right? Really, obviously, eventually you want to be in a place where one revenue leader has visibility of everything across the organization, whether that's top of the funnel marketing, the sales team themselves, or the success team. And I think, frankly, if you don't have a CRO, the chances are that the CEO is taking direct responsibility for those three different departments and trying to get everybody aligned. So what we've seen is organizations start with that kind of founder-led approach. Then you end up with kind of VPs in place for not just marketing, sales, and success, but more and more these days we see a VP of sales operations or revenue operations also having a seat at the table. And then, of course, a CRO is really there to replace the CEO's role in running that function and actually pouring fuel on the fire, really helping the team to be data-driven and help them to grow a whole lot faster, but with this kind of unified approach. So that's in my opinion, that's what that revenue leader needs to be ultimately responsible for, is aligning the teams and helping them to achieve and overachieve on their goals.
Fair, absolutely. So as you operate a lot on clients, what do you see are the biggest challenges in let's say in the organizational structure, or what are the mistakes the companies usually do before, right, either when they're already in the growth phase? Do you see anything where you say, look, that should be the ideal structure, and that are things I see quite often as generating problems?
Oh yes, a lot of them. So I think I spend a lot of time talking about data, insights, and process. A lot of companies will. There's a lot of challenges around making sure you've got the right data in place. And I think, we're obviously advocates of being much more data-driven than most organizations are. So one of the steps that people skip, because it's quite a dry step to focus on, is fixing the data itself, the underlying data around your organization. The reality is that you already have all the data you need to understand the signals that led to revenue in the past, and we can use those signals to build a benchmark of what good looks like. And once we understand the DNA of a good deal, we can use that benchmark to identify risk in deals that are in flight. And then the earlier we understand what those risks look like, the quicker we can either course correct or actually close deals off as lost and move on to something more productive.
Understand. And here comes Ebsta definitely in place, right? So how do you start really using Ebsta in this case, and how much impact can you generate through the, let's say, the transparency towards helping the clients as well to set up the right organizational
That's a
structure?
great question. So, when we started in business, our very first solution is what we currently call relationship intelligence. So, it's a plug and play
Hmm.
solution that connects not just to your CRM, but also to your mail server, your calendars. And we're able to trawl through
Hmm.
all of the historical traffic that, from around the organization, and even from people that have left the business over the last year or two, to really understand how much
Hmm.
momentum or engagement they had across every opportunity that in the past closed, won, or lost. So understanding,
Hmm.
we absolutely, certainly in B2B sales, we find that relationships are key to driving revenue. So, but that's all well and good, but which relationships and at which stage of the sales cycle, and how much momentum is required with different personas to achieve a certain outcome. So, for example,
Hmm.
we had a customer recently. One of the things we do for customers, the first thing we do for customers is fix the underlying data. So we're able to connect to the mail
Hmm.
servers, the calendars, and trawl through the historical traffic and fix the data in CRM, usually in Salesforce these days or HubSpot CRM, to make sure that we've got complete visibility of all of the activity and relationships in the past that led to revenue. Once we've fixed the data and we've put that engine in place so that now all net new contacts or activities going on in the users, in the sales team or the success team's activity with the customers and prospects is automatically captured and logged in the system, we're now in a position to start doing that benchmarking piece, the insights we talked about before.
Nice.
So step one, fix your data. Doesn't need to be a big project. And usually it can be done in 7 days, but you need to fix the data before you move on to the more sexy side of things when you're really focusing on those insights. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
the insights is the next piece of the puzzle. So how do we do that? Well, we've built this kind of out the box insight report that goes back 4 quarters. So we analyze all of the signals in the past that led to revenue for the last 4 quarters, all the way down to individual contributor level, to understand what good looks like and where people are strong. Perhaps they're particularly good at qualifying opportunities,
Hmm.
but bad at business case building, or really good at closing, but never do the qualification particularly well. So understanding the strengths and weaknesses across the organization really helps us to understand where we need to lean in. Where are the challenges that need some focus? And that's where RevOps really comes into play, right? So the
Absolutely.
idea is that revenue intelligence and revenue operations teams are able to really focus in on the opportunities to improve the conversion rates across the whole revenue engine.
No, absolutely, very interesting. I think it's a very pressing topic, right? On the one side, we wanna enable the individuals within the go-to-market team or revenue teams based on their needs, right? We don't want to have a trainer who does ABC in front of 20 people. We want to understand strengths and weaknesses and then make training plans or enablement plan based on their strengths and weaknesses. And I think the tool like yours definitely can help there and to really focus getting more out of the people. But on the other side, I think one topic we have a lot with our clients is all this topic about capacity, OTE to revenue ratio, dependencies, right? And there's a lot of struggle, and especially for the role as the CRO, because I think that's the biggest challenge on the one side on forecasting, but the other side on operations, to really look at this. So how do you, right? Your tool obviously reveals things there and then and helps, but how do you bring it into action that you not only see the data, but what is your recommendation on really planning these capacities and dependencies and using data to increase those?
Well, where do you start? I suppose, let's start at the top of the funnel and work our way down. Okay, so if we think
Absolutely.
about marketing, what do we know? Well, we know that not all leads are equal. So you might be getting leads in from an event you held, or someone downloaded some content from your website, and
Mhm.
others might be through a partner introduction, or maybe they've put their hand up and requested a demo. So really understanding what are the conversion rates of the different types of leads that you're generating, because and which personas are giving you the best outcomes as well. So when you get an inbound demo request from a CRO in our world, that's a really hot lead. But if the same demo request comes in from an AE or an individual contributor, perhaps not quite as hot a lead. So understanding the DNA
Mhm.
behind and the conversion rates behind different qualities of leads, and we did a piece of analysis recently looking at ICP. So So it's all well and good targeting ICP, but there's a lot of companies there. You might have 10,000 plus businesses as considered as ICP. So how do you focus that down again? And the answer is using intent data. So knowing which of the 10,000, which of the 500 within the 10,000 that are actually in market to buy your product. Because guess what? When you start blending intent data into your target personas, you find that the conversion rates are materially different, surprise, surprise, when you're selling to somebody who's actually in market and has a budget for the product you're selling. So that's probably, from a marketing perspective, not all leads are equal, not all personas are equal either. So making sure that the team are prioritizing the leads that have the best conversion rates is absolutely key. Then when we get through to discovery, we know that everyone is kind of aware of the idea of a med pick or a medic or a band. These are all really good tools for qualification. The challenge isn't necessarily having a methodology in place. The challenge is getting the team to diligently use it. Now, you can sit in a training room for a day and get told how you should qualify opportunities. But then we all know that 80% of what people learn in a training room gets lost very quickly. So what we've done is within this kind of idea of revenue intelligence, one of the key features we all know about these days, and most people will be using some form or another of call recording. The problem with a lot of the call recording is that you have to watch a lot of calls to try and get the value from it. When in reality, the AI is now available to automatically take from the call recording and pre-populate the med pick. So the AE, instead of being told what to do, the machine learning is telling them if they're giving them a kind of a green or red as to whether they've qualified the opportunity well enough to lead discovery. Now, all of a sudden, the rep only needs to get a couple of red marks before they go, do you know what? I better qualify this opportunity better. Otherwise, I'm not going to get the opportunity to lead discovery. So that's how AI and the new technology can now really simplify the process for the reps on the ground and actually fast track a lot of their learning, because they want that green badge. They want to leave discovery and move on. And when they see that the data tells them that their qualification, if they fill out that qualification well, we know their conversion rates are going to be much, much higher.
Super interesting. Can you share here some benchmarks, how much efficiency this kind of knowledge brings on average in your clients? Do you have this kind of numbers?
Yeah, sorry, Michael, you cut out. Say one more time.
I said, do you have some benchmarks, how much efficiency this kind of knowledge and help can bring into the teams from your clients? Is this something you look at as well? Because as money has been more expensive lately or has become more expensive, I think efficiency is something we hear with our clients quite often.
Really good question. The short answer is, we've covered marketing. We talked a little bit about qualification. When we can talk a bit more about some of the other data points as well. But the short answer to your question is, we normally see win rates increase by 16% within 3 months, just by highlighting where the challenges are and benchmarking deals that are in flight against deals that have closed, won, or lost in the past. And some of that,
which means the return on invest buying your product should be done in the first 2 months for the entire year.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we expect customers to get a 10x return in the first 3 months. That's pretty much out the box. Yeah. And the other byproducts of this is, all your data is now clean and up to date, and we've now got the insights that we need to really drive the team forward, which leads us on to process. So, knowing, for example, when you have 3 stakeholders involved in a sales process, your win rates are X. But if you have 5 or 6, the win rates are Y. So, knowing that and showing the sales team that, you're able to really focus them on what they need to do to win more. And one of the, there's a lot of interesting data points that we did from our recent analysis. We did a report which your viewers can actually download here from the front page of our website. It's free, and we analyzed.
We put it into the show notes as well. But go ahead.
So we analysed 3.2 million opportunities that represented $37 billion worth of pipeline, and what we found is all of these different signals have a material impact. So we talked about marketing, we talked about medpick or qualification methodologies, how multi-threaded you are, how much engagement. One of the things that we measure isn't just how many relationships you have, but one of the things we know is that relationships drive revenue. So when the relationship is stronger, you win more. So we've come up with an engagement score that's a number out of 100 for every single relationship in the business. And knowing which relationships are trending up and which ones are actually trending down isn't just useful for the sales team, but it's also great, really valuable insights for the customer success team as well.
Absolutely. Totally true. And I think if you connect it well, right, and you have more or less your structures or you have your approach structures, and then using this data to optimize is the most value which revenue operations brings as well to the table, right? On the other side. But let's move on to my next question, which is more talking about technology. So, in your opinion, right, you have a lot of experience with different tool stacks, and then your tools going on top of it. What role does technology play when building a robust revenue architecture and optimizing revenue teams?
No, it's a good question, and I'm going to come back, I'm afraid, to those three things, right? We need to focus on, it's not necessarily the technology, it's the data, the insights, and the process, okay? So
Absolutely.
we talked a little bit about how you can fix the data and have an engine responsible for logging the activity and the contacts and the relationships in place, automatically capturing MedPick, for example, as part of the sales process. The technology should be able to enable the sales team to do more of what they do, which is build relationships and run sales processes. So fixing the data is key, getting the insights and understanding the influence of different personas, for example, on win rates. If you know that a VP of operations, when they're involved in a sales process, your win rates are 3 times higher, the sales team are going to know that. If they know that, they're going to try and push for that persona to be involved in the sales process. These are the data points that we need to use to enable the sales team to do their job better. One of the other stats that we came up with was that only 30% of opportunities opened close won. And the deals that close lost, they spend twice as long in pipe as deals that close won. So there's so much inefficiency in the way the sales teams are operating right now. Just empowering the sales teams with the data, or the sales leaders with the data they need, so that they can either course correct earlier to get a deal back on track, or be brave to close things off as lost sooner, means that the sales team can work on something much more productive a whole lot sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Speaking out of my heart, because what we see quite often is, right, the process is, you need to define the process in order to really decide how you want to operate, and you use technology to actually build it. But if you have all the, let's say, the structures and the technology in place, then the actual work starts, because then you can use the data and use tools like Ebsta to get the insights and use the insights to optimize. Yeah, because quite often what we see is that companies use revenue operations purely for restructuring, for example, right? They do restructuring in processes, but using data, doing analytics or analysis to optimize, then you really bring value, you increase efficiency, increase outcome, and there it comes really to having a sustainable, efficient growth approach. That's why I thank you very much for that, sharing that. I think I totally agree, I would say. So, but coming a little bit about talking a little bit more about learnings and mistakes. What mistakes do you see, or what usual mistakes do you see companies do when implementing or selecting technology in general?
I think people get blinded by features. In my world, we all love call recording tools. They're great, okay? But in my world, call recording is a feature. It's not a product on its own, okay? And really, it's a feature in this wider set we call revenue intelligence. So really, yes, it's great if you see a bell or whistle that's got you excited. That's fantastic. But it really needs to fit with everything else that's going on in the business. And
the holistic view, more or less.
Yeah,
on
absolutely. And there's also, we sit in a world, revenue intelligence and forecasting and pipeline insights. There's a lot of kind of point solutions in our space. And they've got really pretty graphics showing you your forecast or how the pipeline's progressing. But if the underlying data is not consistent, if you haven't got an engine maintaining that and you're still relying on the reps in 2023, nearly 2024 now, if you're still relying on the reps to manually record their activity, to manually populate their MedPick, to manually create contacts, or notice that a contact's updated their job title or telephone number in their email signature and make sure they update the system, you're still living in the past, and you're not only are you giving the reps busy work, which when they could be selling, but actually they're never going to do a great job of it anyway. And the technology is there to enable. Let's try and focus on improving the amount of time that they can spend actually on the front line by actually taking away that busy work from them. And actually, with good quality data, all of a sudden the insights become apparent, right? And the processes become a whole lot more consistent. Time and time again, we see organizations where different sales teams, perhaps based in different geographies, are achieving wildly different outcomes. In fact, one of the stats from the report was that what we call the velocity delta between the top performers and everybody else has never been wider. We saw that just 23% of the AEs in the market now are responsible for 83% of the revenue. And so that velocity delta is just so wide. And the only reason for that is that we're not being consistent. We're not being data led.
Fully. Not guided, I would say, right? There's not enough guidance. That's what we see. We have so wide goal attainments, right? So goal attainments of teams quite often below 50%. Data quality, usually when we do a diagnosis, below 40% in some teams. What can you do with it, right? So totally seen. I can totally understand that there's only a small, right, overachievers really bringing the revenue, and that's why. And on the other side, you see a lot of companies want to grow, add more people in an, I would say, inefficient setup, and then they add more people, costs go up, but the revenue not going up as planned because the people are even less efficient. So insights there bring a lot of value to the table.
No, I agree, and Michael, that's one of the reasons that we partnered up together, right? Because you guys are the change agents with the customer, and the insights that we normally deliver customers when they're on board with us, we're now making available through our partnership. So as part of your audit, I know that you're including some of the Ebsta insights in that discussion. So you're able to actually highlight to the customer where the challenges are and really help them be data-driven or really shine a light on the benefits of being data-driven.
No, absolutely. And I think, look, what we're always looking for are the blind spots, right? Where can we not explain things? Where can we not explain the conversion rates, or where are things too long in the pipeline? And I can totally relate to the topic that, right, you have a lot of lost deals much longer in the opportunity because people are afraid of no, right? So we see on hold stages in pipelines, or we see no activity more than eight weeks, and we still think, they coming back, but the approach is lost, right? We're not agreeing that the approach is lost. And a tool like yours definitely helps us to get to the most important points much faster, right? So we can see it, we can analyze it, we can use the data, and then make, I would say, argument-based or data-based decisions and not opinion-based decisions. Because what I see quite often in companies is they make opinion-based decisions. Which tool is good? Which tool they should buy? Why they should do it? I speak to 5 others and they told me it's good, I do it. And it's like, what has this to do with your company? Define what you need and then use or decide on tools or whatever to get get this solved or to enable your teams. And that's why definitely it is what we focus on is data-based optimization, and tools like yours or tools like Ebsta definitely fully fits into our operations, our services to optimize these clients. One coming to another question, which is more about learning, and not sure if you can answer this because not sure if you ever have done one. So can you name one big mistake you have done and what you have learned of it to share with the audience? So in terms of revenue decisions or in terms of general operations, where you say, look, there was a decision I did and there was a clear mistake. I learned this on it, and that's how I can do it better. Because I think as more we share about things we learned, as more the audience can learn.
Well, if we're talking about mistakes I've made, I'm not sure we've got enough time for the day. But I suppose that there's a couple that come to mind. First of all, when you're transitioning away from kind of founder-led sales to becoming more of a the face of the business and spending more and more time with customers, I always found it very difficult to let go of those opportunities. And you inevitably as a founder, you probably could do it 5 or 10% better than anybody else. But actually, you need to kind of let go and allow people to kind of make the mistakes they're going to make, so that they can learn and develop as you go. So probably over micromanaging it when I was kind of going through that transition was one of the challenges. The other is really probably about consistency. As a founder, every weekend, every evening, you've got another idea and another great way to kind of move things forward. And actually, it's really it can be very disruptive for the team when you're coming in every 5 minutes with a slightly different approach, or play around with the pricing again, or you decide to do things in a different way, and really allowing people time to run an experiment, to see how things are operating, and then to review the results and then make a change and then go again. And also it means that you can
relate.
Yeah, you can hold back on your on the points that you want to, the changes you want to make. Do them all in one go, every other month, and then you can kind of see what works and what didn't. So consistency is absolutely key here. Getting everybody to do things in the same way makes it a whole lot easier to make a small change and see a big outcome. So yeah, be data driven, trust your people. and let them get on with the job rather than necessarily kind of changing what they're doing every 5 minutes.
Fair enough. Thank you for sharing. I can totally relate to this. It's like holding back and breathe sometimes, right? Because if you think you can do all on your own, you're never going to scale the company, right? And the team you hired is good. Yeah, I sometimes see it, and then something is too slow, right? And then you jump in, and then you disturb everyone so hard that it's like, man,
Definitely.
What's going on, Michael? I hear that sometimes, man. Can you step back, please?
Yeah, no,
it's like, okay,
I get that a lot. So no, I hear you.
Good. Coming to my last two questions. One is about modern revenue leadership. Can you name a common misconceptions you see on the market about modern revenue leadership?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one. I think we're in danger in sales of promoting people to their level of incompetence. So, you get a good SDR and you promote him to an AE, and then he's a good AE and you promote him to a sales manager, and then from there becomes the VP, and before you know it, the CRO. But just because somebody is a particularly good AE, for example, doesn't necessarily mean they're a good manager. So I think that's probably one of the things I'd raise. The other thing I'm seeing more and more now, when we think about the leaders in the revenue engine, the traditional leaders, you've got a VP sales, VP marketing, VP success, and the obvious progression historically has been the VP of sales takes the CRO role. What we're seeing more and more now is that because the role is now so data driven, what might be the VP of marketing has become more and more usual for the VP of marketing to step up as a CRO, because the marketing function has been data driven now for well over a decade. When I started in business, marketing was all about colouring in, but these days it's an analytics world. Absolutely. Right? And it's all about the numbers. It's all about the conversion rates of different types of personas and leads and so on. So when you find a superstar head of marketing that's not just able to deliver leads or even opportunities, but is actually able to responsibly deliver a predictable pipeline of leads through to revenue, then you found your CRO.
Yeah, absolutely fair.
So that would be something I'm seeing more of, and probably a misconception that in the market, it doesn't always have to be the sales leader.
No, absolutely. And I would even say it's sometimes even dangerous to have the sales leader as a CRO role, because I believe the position as a CRO is highly complex, extremely challenging. You have a lot of topics to take care of, and a lot of topics to consider while doing a decision, right? If you do one decision, you have in charge of so many different functions which are so dependent on each other. You cannot just go through the wall as a sales, I know how to do it, and then we just do it. And you should not only focus on sales, right? Because sales becomes less important, or is less important in a SaaS environment, because closed one is interesting, but how do we grow the client consistently, sustainably to a certain total value, which is then interesting? It's not about new business, right? And I think, I totally see that, and it's a very data-driven approach. So thanks for sharing this. I think it's a good learning where everybody can think of who to promote to their CRO. Coming to my last question, what is the one advice I would say you would give a company when talking about revenue leadership you can share from your learning they should consider?
Be data-driven. I keep saying the same three things: data, then insights, then process. If you don't have consistent data, or if you've recently merged with 2 or 3 other businesses, get all of the data into a single platform. Ebsta's not the only vendor out there that can do it, but do get in touch. Reach out. Happy to have conversations with people on LinkedIn about these things. Fix your data first, then work out, do the benchmarking, understand the insights that drive revenue within your organization, and then implement process so that you can consistently look for small incremental improvements across that journey. RevOps is like going to the gym. You're never actually done, right? You're always looking for another 1% here, another 1% there. So be mindful of trying to run too fast. If you haven't got consistent data, if you've not put an engine in place that's just logging everything on your behalf and able to deliver you those insights and benchmarks, you're already you're already behind the curve. And if all you're doing is looking at pretty graphics, that the data that underneath it isn't correct, you're wasting your time. So try and have a consistent approach: data, insights, process.
Guy, beautiful, and it comes. I can totally relate to this. Thank you very much for sharing your time. Very interesting conversation, and see you soon.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. Take care.
Cheers.